Namaste. Namaste. My name is Uma Dinsmore-Tuli, and I'm sitting in a 10th and 12th century church, Temple Macdug, in Inishmore on the Aran Islands off the west coast of Ireland. And it's a beautiful June evening, and I'm telling you a story. So it's a story about some Celtic yogis, and the Celtic yogi I wanted to speak about was William Butler Yeats, and the story is in a book that I co-wrote with Jack Harrison. We wrote a book called The Celtic School of Yoga, and this is one of my favourite stories in the book, so I thought I would share it because I've been here sharing yoga on Inishmore. And the story is of a little boy. When Yeats was a little boy, his father used to read to him from Walden on Walden Pond by Henry David Thoreau. Now, when I found this out, I was really excited because as an 18-year-old, when I first travelled to New England and lived there in Connecticut for a year or so, I discovered Thoreau through a great teacher, my English teacher at the school I was at, Robin Blackburn, and she taught me about Thoreau, and I found Walden Pond and threw myself on the ground by the shores of Walden Pond because I was so inspired by Thoreau. He claimed that he was living the yoga as well as he could. He's one of the first people in the West who actually self-identified as a yogi, so he's quite an important figure for me as a Western yogini, and as a person with an interest in living simply in the rhythms of life. He said he went to the woods because he wished to live deliberately. He wanted to suck the marrow out of life to feel fully alive. So I was very inspired by Thoreau as a young woman, and I still am. I kind of fell in love with Thoreau when I was about 18, and I still think he's pretty damn cool as a yogi. So when I found out that William Butler Yeats, as a little boy, had been read to by his father loved Thoreau, so his father used to read on Walden Pond to little Willie Yeats, and he became really inspired by it. And even as a teenager, what he wanted to do was to go off to the Lake Isle of Innisfree and to live there like Thoreau. And when he then moved to London in his early 20s, he still harbored this desire, but he became very homesick. And in his homesickness and his yearning for Sligo, which is where the Lake Isle of Innisfree is, he was inspired to write a very famous poem. He says it's the first poem of his that had like his own real music and lyric in it, his own voice, and it's called The Lake Isle of Innisfree, and many people know it. It's a very famous poem that begins, "I will arise and go now, and go to Innisfree," and it's all about him wanting to live as a yogi on the Lake Isle of Innisfree. It came to him in London when he was walking down the street and he heard a little fountain. He tells how he walked past a shop selling soft drinks and carbonated beverages or whatever they had in those days, and he could hear this little fountain that they had tinkling away of the water falling, and it reminded him of the sound of the lake. And that reminded him of how he really wanted to go and live like a yogi. And he also, from a very young age, had been really fascinated by yoga. And he'd wanted to live like that. They said he was a bit of a nature freak, was Yeats, and he used to sleep with the windows open and want to commune with nature. And even as a young man, he tried to read the Yoga Sutra, and he'd only got hold of like really academic scholarly texts, and they frustrated him. He said he really wanted to hear the voices of the yogis, and it wasn't until he was a much older man that he actually encountered a real live yogi who inspired him. And this real live yogi was Sri Purohit Swami. And Yeats collaborated with him, and it's not so widely known. He did so many amazing things, did Yeats, that many people have forgotten that he had a lifelong interest in Indian philosophy, and he was really fascinated by the Yoga Sutras. And when he found this Swami that he connected with, he worked with him on his translation of the Yoga Sutras and the Mandukya Upanishad, and he really was involved quite late in his life, and he really wanted to go to India. But really, he never got there. He went to Mallorca. instead, one of the Balearic Islands off the south of Spain. And he worked with Purohit Swami to translate the Upanishads, the Mandukya Upanishads and the principal Upanishads there. So the story really is about this amazing connection, and I feel it's like a lineage, a lost lineage of the Celtic Yogis. That's what I'm claiming it as, and I'm glad to have found these guys, because I'm not really interested so much in the other lineages, you know, people who set up hierarchies and schools and, you know, global corporate kind of franchises of yoga. It doesn't interest me in the least, but the poets, they interest me. So this is like a poetic lineage of amazing guys. So it's Yeats inspired by Thoreau, and living in that way that was really deeply moving, and to me, and it feels like that connects in with Yeats' lifelong fascination with the Upanishads. And there you go, two great yogis, and this Celtic lineages brings Yeats and Thoreau together. That is the sound of a helicopter. You know, the helicopter is powered by Red Bull. Literally, it's financed by Red Bull, who are about to do a massive diving competition just kind of over there on the cliffs. So they're putting up a massive diving platform. Anyway, and that's the end of my story, really, because it gets a little bit noisy with the helicopter here as they're airlifting kit into the edge of the cliff. But I wanted to just leave you with this sense that we have, if you want it, we have this beautiful poetic link between the great poet laureate, the great Celtic poet Yeats, his lifelong fascination with Indian philosophy, his boyhood delight with Thoreau, who himself was a yogi, and Thoreau had been inspired by Emerson to connect with the Mahabharata and the Upanishads and all these Indian texts and the Bhagavad Gita. Big helicopter there. It's kind of crazy on this tiny island, is this? Anyway, that's it. I'm going to stop now. But I hope you're inspired. If you like the story, you like the story. If you want to read more, I suppose it's a little advert. This is the Celtic School of Yoga. There we are. It's a beautiful book, Celtic School of Yoga, by myself and by Jack Harrison. We wrote it together, and that's one of the stories that really inspired me. I did a lot of the research about this kind of lineage of Celtic yogis, and I hope you're kind of going to enjoy finding out more about them. I got another video about the women, about the yoginis, the Irish women who went out to India. Enough. Namaste. And yeah, enjoy discovering your connection to what we find when we come home. It's like for India, we have to go far away, but when we come home to ourselves, and this is my maternal homelands here in Ireland, and yeah, I'm glad that there are yogis like Yeats and Thoreau to inspire us to live a yogic life in a really radical, political, engaged, poetical, alive way. Yeah, to live deliberately. Okay, namaste. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.